एक simple सा सवाल है. Let's imagine a ship. Let's call it ship of Theseus. Now you notice that the wooden planks of this ship, they are decaying one by one. Now as a solution, you replace the wooden planks. अब आपके पास जो ship इतने new planks के साथ तैयार हो गई है, would you still call it ship of Theseus? Now let's add a twist. जो old planks थे, someone comes along and makes a ship out of those very old planks. Would you call that ship of Theseus or the one with the new planks? This is an old thought experiment, an old paradox usually attributed to Plutarch. And if we extend this from objects to persons, this becomes far more unsettling. So hi everyone, this is Tanya Sharma and today I want to talk about this triangular structure of thoughts, जिसका पहला हिस्सा मैंने अभी आपके साथ डिस्कस करा है, which is the ship of Theseus paradox. Now I want to extend it to something, but यहाँ पे मुझे एक disclaimer देना पड़ेगा. This is where you have to stop watching the video if you plan to read either this book or watch this movie. Now consider William Shakespeare. In August 1596, his son named Hamnet died at the age of 11. So the cause of death is not recorded, but what we do know for sure is that he was one of twins. The other twin being Judith, his sister. And that the names Hamlet and Hamnet were used more or less interchangeably in Elizabethan records. This is my triangular thought का दूसरा हिस्सा. Shakespeare, who is now consumed with grief, is writing Hamlet after his son died. A play consumed with grief, with the relationship between fathers and sons, with the question of what survives when someone is gone. The playwright who wrote comedies in 1590s, the playwright who now is suddenly writing Hamlet, is in continuation the same name, the same body. But what shifted? The ship of Theseus applied not to wood, not to planks, but to a human being. No one can draw this clean, causal line between Hamlet's death and the creation of Hamlet. But isn't the proximity striking? And जो ये proximity है, यहाँ पे आती है Maggie of Farrell. This woman comes and takes the literature world by storm and writes exactly about this proximity. If a person undergoes a profound rupture, if a person who is a parent undergoes the death of his child, what is the impact of that death? Does the person who creates something after that event remain the same person he was before? Now let's talk about the third and the final part of my thought structure. Borges took this question in a different direction in a very short piece called Everything and Nothing. Borges imagines Shakespeare as a man who suspected from very early on that there was no fixed self inside him. To compensate for this absence, Borges writes that Shakespeare turned to the theatre and became one by one the people he created. He was the jealousy of Othello, the ambition of Macbeth. He inhabited his characters so completely that the boundary between author and creation dissolved. He has dispersed himself, plank by plank, you might say, into the many characters he created. It is Borges doing what Borges does best, using a person from literary history to explore a philosophical problem. At times, we tend to think of identity as something fixed, despite knowing better. And Ship of Theseus suggests otherwise, that plank by plank, we are changing constantly, consistently. So does the distance between the Shakespeare who buried his son and the Shakespeare who wrote the greatest meditation on grief in the English language. So does Borges' quiet, unsettling suggestion that Shakespeare became his characters precisely because there was no stable self to anchor him. The ship sails on, the planks keep changing, and somehow it is still a ship. We are all that same person who we used to be before, but we are still not the same person. That is the continual identity issue. And maybe we just have to be okay with not finding answers at all times. So is there a text which reminds you of this ship of Theseus problem? Or is there a particular event in your life which you think sits very close with this ship of Theseus paradox? If so, then please let me know.